In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. Mr. Guterres, High Commissioner for UNHCR, members of the Executive Committee, panelists, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, friends. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you virtually. I was very much wishing to be with you in person, but you must understand, my duty calls to prevent production of more displaced people and refugees, and I hope that our efforts here will contribute substantially to the agenda that you're deliberating on. Let me begin with thanks. First, to UNHCR for its years, decades of engagement with us, and for convening the special meeting to focus on our needs and aspirations and concrete plans of action to address the plight and conditions of our refugees. Second, to our two neighbors, Iran and Pakistan, who in the course of decades have opened their borders, offered us refuge, and are still hosting over several millions of our refugees. Thirdly, to the donor community, as represented by Secretary Richard and Ambassador Sparwasser, who have generously contributed to the well-being of refugees and to offering of opportunities for those who are most in need and excluded from the contract that binds citizens and their governments. Let me equally thank Mr. Kam and other members of the non-governmental organizations. The Swedish committee for many years functioned in effect as the Ministry of Education of Afghanistan, and they were joined by many others. It is equally my privilege to acknowledge the distinguished service of individuals as represented by Ms. Aqila Asifi and our own very distinguished Dr. Seema Samar, the Commissioner of the Human Rights in Afghanistan. As individuals, they've shown what a difference goodwill, commitment, and determination can make. Let me address 4 issues. They are push and pull factors in the production of refugees. First, absence of rules of the game among states and governments has been a strong driver of instability in our part of the world. Absence of agreement on rights and obligations incumbent upon states to produce regional stability still is costing us very heavily, as the cost of the current imposed war on Afghanistan, particularly in Kunduz, should remind us. Second, direct foreign invasion. The Soviet Union, without any excuse, invaded a neutral neighbor, thereby initiating a massive cycle of displacement and exclusion and misery. 3, it's been a failure of policy in politics, primarily at the national level. The failure of the Afghan political class in 1992 to agree on rules of the game, and the subsequent conflicts, both internally driven, regionally induced, and internationally supported, deprived our people of the opportunity to benefit from the overthrow and the dismemberment of the former Soviet Union. Regionally, we have a failure of cooperation. Internationally, we've had neglect and lack of acknowledgement that the problems of refugees are a global problem and they cannot be placed on an island and forgotten. Additionally, there are pull factors. Close to 1 million Afghans live in OECD countries, Europe, North America, Australia, and other places. 1 million ties bind them and the lives that they've managed to make for themselves in the course of now almost 3 generations attracts others. In a world where money moves freely, but where human movement is strictly regulated, that is opened up the opportunity for criminal networks to promise the moon and then abandon people within the oceans or the deserts. These pulls and pull factors must be understood as a full process of production to allow us to address the scale of the problem and to fashion policies that would answer to the criteria of endurance, sustainability, and affordability. What are we doing about it? How are we, the Government of National Unity, and I, as the President of Afghanistan, facing to our responsibility? The first point is articulation of an inclusive vision. Simply put, we want to make our Constitution a reality. Our Constitution contains all the rights and obligations articulated in the International Declaration of Human Rights. But in contrast to the declaration that is universal, there is an agency and an agent made responsible for that realization. That is the elected government of Afghanistan, and we are fully committed to this. In order to do this, we have adopted a whole of the state and a whole of the government approach. The question of internally displaced and refugees is one of our top national priorities that is articulated in both a vision of inclusion and a plan of action that would be realistic and would be implemented through mobilization of all our resources and all our partnerships. We are going to focus on drivers of exclusion, poverty, and corruption. 36% of our people live below poverty, and that line is stubbornly not changed for over 8 years. As long as that type of poverty prevails, refugees will not return voluntarily. So we must address the question of elimination of poverty as our top national priority. There is also exclusion. The state has not been an instrument hitherto, not been the instrument of a compact with the citizenry. We've articulated the national program on People's Charter that would be implemented in a participatory manner and with a compact of transparency and accountability. And then, of course, corruption takes a huge toll from the poor and the excluded. The refugees and the internally displaced will not believe that they can make their homeland home unless they feel that the state is an agent of a compact with its people. And that means focusing on corruption in earnest and eliminating these drivers. Our promise to ourselves is to change in word and deeds the condition of the most excluded and the poorest, namely the internally displaced. I hope and am very committed to deleting this word from our vocabulary, not by sleight of hand, but by those programs that would enable us to truly incorporate and offer them a place in a society which they deserve and to which they aspire. My third point is on regional cooperation. Our poverty will not be lifted without regional cooperation. What foreign aid can only offer partially, regional cooperation can offer fully. Millions of jobs can be created by enabling Afghanistan to function again as an Asian roundabout, where roads to and from Central Asia, West Asia, and partially with our border with China, East Asia, will connect South Asia and the rest of Asia together. The emergence of the Asian continental economy in the next 20 years is a remarkable opportunity. Our human resources, our natural resources, our mineral resources, all can then be put in the service of addressing the causes, the underlying drivers, policy of poverty, exclusion, and absorption of refugees. The second issue that the region needs to address is the pathology, morphology, and ecology of terror. Terror is a threat to stability. Just, I ask, neutral international observers and analysts to calculate the yearly cost, the weekly cost, and the monthly cost that this system inflicts upon us in the larger Middle East, West Asia, and the rest of the world. There cannot be a distinction between good and bad terrorists. We must address this threat together, thereby providing an opportunity of a positive vision and inclusive process for offering the young people, who are the absolute majority of our population, to join the mainstream. And lastly, cooperative advantage is fully demonstrated compared to the competitive advantage. In the game of nations, cooperation can prevail, as Northeast Asia has fully shown, and long-lasting poverty and exclusion can be overcome. My last and final point is global cooperation. We need to understand the scale of the problem, fashion the partnerships that are necessary to mobilize the resources, and then put the compacts of accountability, transparency, and participation at the national, regional, and global level that are necessary to address this most horrific problem of our times. People need not be refugees. The alternative is for them and for all of us to be citizens. Citizens bound together by rights and obligations bestowed from commitment to rule of law, to cooperating with each other, and to overcoming those aspects of instability, displacement, and exclusion that are giving rise to the phenomena of systematic production of refugees and internally displaced people. I once again thank you for the opportunity to enable me to join you virtually. Look very much forward to your deliberations and reaffirm the commitment of Afghanistan as a people, as a government, and as a state to address this most serious of our issues. Have a good day, and once again, successful deliberations.